صلاة ربي وسلامه ورحمته وبركاته على ذاك النبي الكريم نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue 3:16 p.m. Sunday, May the 12th, which is now in the month of Ramadan al-Mubarak, the 7th day of Ramadan. As we go back to Usul al-Thalatha, excuse me everyone, it was a page. That's my page. If you notice it and go back to your books, everyone, we stopped at the part of the ayah. What's the beginning, in the beginning of the usul that we covered, which is al-ma'rifah, al-asl thani, having knowledge of the second principle. We stopped at the ayah where Allah Ta'ala says in His book that Allah testifies that none has the right to be worshipped except Him, and the angels, and those who possess knowledge. Establishing justice, none has the right to be worshipped except Him, and He is Aziz and He's Hakeem. Where's all the pages at? I don't know. Oh, here it is. So if you look in the books, it says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Aziz and He's Hakeem. That's the last place where we stopped at last week. And we continue the evidences and proofs in which the great Imam Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, that he put in this tremendous treatise, in which we constantly emphasize to everyone to memorize and understand as much as possible this treatise, which is Mubarak, which is blessed, and which was a reason for reviving nations and curing a lot of social ills in the lands, based upon the likes of these books, in which Allah Ta'ala put blessing in, and also gave tawfiq to its author. So we were discussing the ayah, in which you'll find in the book, and after the evidence in which he utilized, the great Imam, because we know after every principle he brings and substantiates that principle with evidence and proofs, meaning he backs it up with evidences and clear proofs from Kitab or from the Sunnah. So if you look if everyone looks in their book, it says, وَمَعْنَاهَا لَا مَعْبُودْ بِحَقٍّ إِلَّا اللَّهِ لَا إِلَهَ نَافِيًا جَمِيعَ مَا يُعْبَدُ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا اللَّهِ مُثْبِتًا الْعِبَادَةَ لِلَّهِ وَحْدَهُ. In the meaning of it, if everyone looks in their books, there's no deity worthy of worship in truth except Allah. And we discussed last class, لَا إِلَهَ نَافِيًا جَمِيعَ مَا يُعْبَدُ. La ilaha negates everything that is worshipped besides Allah or along with Allah. Establishing worship for Allah subhanahu jalla fil ula alone. He has no partners in His worship, just as He has no partners in His mulk, meaning He has no partners in His kingdom, in His dominion, or what He owns, and He's the king of. We talked about how this is another example of how the great Imam follows the Quran and the authentic Sunnah, the Messenger of Allah, by mentioning Tawheed al-Uluhiyya and Rububiyyah together, utilizing the Lordship of Allah to establish Uluhiyya, to establish the worship of Allah. Because as we discussed and said that Tawheed al-Rububiyyah is utilized, or it's mentioned in the book of Allah, subhanahu jalla fil ula, in order to establish upon the creation that He alone is the one that deserves to be worshipped. If you look in your books, everyone, it says, وَتَفْسِيرُهَا الَّذِي يُوَضِّحُهَا. He says, when Ibrahim, that he said to his father and to his people, Verily, إِنَّنِي بَرَاءٌ مِمَّا تَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا الَّذِي فَطَرَنِي فَإِنَّهُ سَيَهْدِينَ وَجَعَلَهَا كَلِمَةً بَاقِيَةً فِي عَقِبَهِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. The next evidence that he says, he mentions in this tremendous treatise, he says, hence that Ibrahim, that he said to his father and to his people, Verily, I am free from what you worship along with Allah or besides Allah, except the one who created me, or the one who gave me that natural, correct, upright disposition. For verily He will guide me. He says, and Allah Ta'ala mentions, it says, and we made it an everlasting or remaining word in His lineage, in His progeny that came later, or in those who follow Him, as we'll mention inshallah. Maybe perhaps they will return and leave off their polytheism. قُلْ يَا أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ. Then it goes on to say, the great Imam, say, O people of the book, come to a word that is equal, or a word that is the same between us and you, which is kalimat al-tawheed, la ilaha illallah, meaning that we do not worship except Allah, and we do not set up partners along with Him, anything in the least. And we do not take each other as lords besides Allah. And if they turn away, then say, bear witness that we are Muslimun, submitting to Allah. And if you notice in your books, as it goes on to say, وَدَلِيلُ الشَّهَادَةِ أَنَّ مُحَمَّدَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى. And the evidence and proofs for the testimony that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah, that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, the ayah, verily has come to you a Rasul from yourselves, Azizun alayhi ma anittum. It is hard and difficult upon him of what causes you stress. He is desirable. He is very diligent that you be from the believers. And He's Ra'uf ar-Rahim. And we'll discuss the meaning of Ra'uf and Rahim and the differences as far as the meanings. وَمَعْنَا الشَّهَادَةِ أَنَّ مُحَمَّدَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. And the meaning of the testimony that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, obeying Him and what He commanded, and having firm belief and conviction of what He informed, and to stay far away from what He prohibited, and restrain oneself from that thing. And not that Allah be worshipped except with what He legislated. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So now, if everyone looks in their books, we finished the meaning of the ayah, Azizun Hakim, and that there's no deity worthy of worship in truth except Allah. And we said that that is the correct meaning of La ilaha illallah, that there's no deity worthy of worship in truth except Allah, meaning that there are other deities there are other deities that are worshipped either along with Allah or besides Allah. So we are affirming there is other deities, but the worship of them are invalid and false and rejected. Whoever says the meaning of La ilaha illallah, you'll find some of them from the Muslimun that they say La ma'bud illallah. There's no deity worshipped except Allah. Is that true? As we know, that's not true. There are other deities that are worshipped along with Allah. Kama yashhadu bidhalika al-waqi', of what we even see right now in front of us. in the society that we live in, all over the world, you'll find there are deities that are worshipped either along with Allah or besides Allah. So the meaning of if one was to say that there's no deity except Allah, then he has made a mistake. That's incorrect. The meaning of La ilaha illallah, meaning there's no deity worthy of worship in truth. No deity worthy of worship, except that there are other ma'budat or ma'luhat or aliha. There are other deities out there, but the worship of them are false. So the correct meaning of La ilaha illallah, as we discussed, there is no deity worthy of worship in truth except Allah. That is the correct tafsir of the meaning of La ilaha illallah. If one was to look at his books, it says, Allah mentioned in his book, La ilaha, as we discussed last class, La ilaha, nafiyan lil jins. That context in which you see in the Arabic language is called La nafiya lil jins, negating everything that is worshipped along with Allah or besides Allah, without any exception, as we mentioned last class. Establishing the worship for Allah alone. He has no partners in his ibadah, just as he has no partners in his dominion. You'll find, ya ma'ashal ikhwah, as this is the ada, this is the meaning, and you'll find that this is something that not only did the author bring to light or shed some light of, that it's incumbent upon the Muslim that he has to bring a nafi wal ithbat, that he has to bring negation and affirmation. If he wants to bring the clear, unadulterated, correct, upright meaning of La ilaha illallah, which contains negation and affirmation both together. Hasad al-ilahiyya lillahi wahda. As you'll find that Allah ta'ala, that he restricted worship to him alone. You'll find from all the ulama in the past and today follow the same principle and the same methodology of negation and affirmation. You'll find that Ahl Ilm that they mention to say, just mere negation isn't anything. It's nothing. It isn't anything. Mere negation isn't anything. Because non-existence isn't anything. And it does not establish the tawheed. For one is to just bring negation without affirmation, then you still have not affirmed something. You have to bring the affirmation. So an-nafi al-mahad adamu mahad wal adam laysa bi shay. Mere negation is mere non-existence. It isn't anything. And it does not affirm anything. And it does not affirm the monotheism. As for al-ithbat al-mujarrad, as for just now bringing affirmation without the negation, then verily that does not prevent other people or other things or other deities now participating in that particular thing. So it does not affirm that oneness for what you're trying to what? Establish. For that's the reason why we said that negation in La ilaha illallah is a refutation against the polytheists. You're removing and cleansing everything. And you'll find that it's something that comes in the Quran, in which is a methodology in even teaching the people, as they call it, a tasfiyah with tarbiyah. Removing everything, and removing everything which is evil, erasing what will be the pollutants or something that will taint the people, and then bringing what will be established of what's correct. That you'll find in La ilaha illallah similar to that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala erases everything, removes everything without any exception. Then he establishes the oneness for himself. So like we said, an-nafi al-mahad, just mere negation, does not affirm anything unless you bring the second part, which is the affirmation. Because نفي المحض عدم محض ليس بشيء. Just as mere negation is just absolute non-existence, and non-existence isn't anything until you bring affirmation to establish a certain affair. That's the reason why Allah says, illallah. After Allah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, removed everything, erased everything, eradicated everything, and also removed and cleansed the i'tiqad, the belief of the people, with this meaning of la ilaha, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the second, illallah, affirming only one thing, which is the oneness for Him, and establishing that absolute worship for Him alone sincerely. And in that, as we said, is a refutation against the atheist. When you say illallah is a refutation against those who disbelieve in the existence of Allah and their concepts, and also their different branches and their different sects. As we discussed last class, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions La ilaha illallah in so many ways in His book. And that is the ayah, if you look in your book. If you look in your book, it says, إِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ لِقَوْمِهِ إِنَّنِي بَرَاءٌ مِّمَّا تَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا الَّذِي فَطَرَنِي. Ibrahim, that he said to his father and his people, he said, verily, I am free from what you worship, except the one who has created me, or gave me that natural upright disposition of knowing His oneness, and knowing that He exists, and knowing He deserves to be worshipped. So notice in the ayah, if you look in your books, it says, I am free from what you worship. That's La ilaha. La ilaha illallah is mentioned in the ayah. Verily, I am free from what you worship is La ilaha. Except the one who made me upon that fitrah, the one who created me upon that upright disposition, which is the worship of Allah. Except the one fatarani, except the one who created me is illallah. So you notice that La ilaha illallah is mentioned in other parts in the Quran, however, with different wording. As we know, Ya ma'ash al-ikhwa wal-akhawat, that La ilaha illallah is mentioned in the book of Allah in so many different ayat. This is an example of it. Also, if you look in your book, in the next ayah, it says, قُلْ يَا أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا. O people of the book, come to a word that is the same between us and you, that we do not worship except Allah. So La ilaha illallah is mentioned again. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions it a second time in the same context. وَلَا نُشْرِكُ بِهِ شَيْئًا. We do not worship except Allah, and we do not set up partners with Him anything in the least. Then it says, and we do not take each other as lords besides Allah. Another time, La ilaha illallah was mentioned. La yattakhidhu ba'tuna ba'tan arbaba. That we do not take each other as lords. That's La ilaha. Min dunillah. Besides Allah is except Allah. So you find La ilaha illallah again was mentioned in this ayah, but however with a different wording. As we know, Ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, that La ilaha illallah has conditions. As we know. And I'm sure that all of us has learned that La ilaha illallah, not only knowing the proper meaning of it, and knowing that it brings negation and affirmation, but we know that La ilaha illallah has conditions. And I'm sure that everyone is familiar with this. That we know of the tremendous athar upon Wahb ibn Munabbih, the great Imam from the Salaf and from the Rijal al-Sahihain, from the narrators in which Bukhari and Imam Muslim use in their two books, the great Imam Wahb ibn Munabbih. Then he mentioned and said, Su'ila an miftah al-Jannah. Kama fi al-Bukhari. As we know, this narration comes in al-Bukhari. There was asked the great Imam Wahb ibn Munabbih upon miftah al-Jannah. It was asked about what is the key or the door, what is the key for paradise. It was said to him, Alaysa miftah al-Jannah la ilaha illallah, as we know. Is it the key to paradise? None has the right to be worshipped except Allah. He said, Bala, ولكن ليس مفتاح إلا له أسنان فإن جئت بمفتاح له أسنان فتح لك وإلا لم يفتح لك والأسنان هي الشروط. He was asked, isn't La ilaha illallah the key to open paradise? He said, of course. However, there isn't any key except that it has teeth to it. There isn't any key except that it has teeth. And if you bring the key along with the teeth, the door will be open for you. And if it does not have those teeth on it, with the proper teeth, then the door will not be open. And we know that the teeth to the key of La ilaha illallah are the conditions. In which you'll find that the great Imam, Al-Imam Al-Barbahari, rahimahullah, that he mentioned and said, Shahadatu an la ilaha illallah la tuqbalu min sahibiha illa bi sidq al-niyah wa khalis al-yaqeen. Wa sarraha bidhalik ibn Abdul Hadi. As the great Imam, Al-Imam Al-Barbahari, rahimahullah, that he mentioned in this tremendous book of Sharh al-Sunnah, that he mentioned and said that the testimony that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah is not accepted from the one who says it, except bi sidq al-niyah, except that he has truthfulness in his intention. Truthfulness of intention and pure, absolute surety, which is from the conditions of La ilaha illallah. So you notice those conditions, or some of them, what he mentioned in the context, was sidq, wa yaqeen, wa kadhalika al-ikhlas, truthfulness and sincerity and surety. Also the great Imam, who's from the students of Shaykh al-Islam, Taymiyyah, his name was Ibn Abdul Hadi, rahimahullah, where he said, فقال فإن من شروط كلمة الإخلاص باللسان التصديق بذلك وتحقيقه بالقلب وإلا فهو منافق. The great Imam Ibn Abdul Hadi, who was one of the students of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, he said, for verily from the conditions of the great kalimat al-ikhlas, the word of sincerity, La ilaha illallah, he says, if it being uttered with the tongue, is that it comes along with that, at-tasdiq bidhalik, that firm conviction and belief, and actualizing that with the heart, meaning firmly believing that in the heart. And if that's not the case, then he's a hypocrite. As we know that the conditions of La ilaha illallah, quickly just to mention them, is knowledge, surety, sincerity, truthfulness, love, submission, acceptance. As we know, those are the conditions of La ilaha illallah, al-ilmul munafi lil-jahl, knowledge that negates ignorance. So that shows everyone the importance of knowledge, that no one can actualize La ilaha illallah without bringing the proper teeth so it can open the door, except that from those teeth that are put on the key properly is knowledge. So if one wants the door of paradise to be open, notice the first thing, or the first conditions of La ilaha illallah is knowledge. knowledge that negates ignorance. And when we say negating of ignorance here, meaning having knowledge of that word, that kalima, and what indicates of what affirms la ilaha illallah, and also what negates it. I'll say it again. The meaning of knowledge of la ilaha illallah, that which is from the conditions of la ilaha illallah, is that one has to have knowledge of that kalima, of the knowledge of that word, of what it indicates, of what keeps it valid, meaning what sustains it and maintains it, and what negates it. And what negates it. What negates that worship from Allah and what affirms it for Allah alone. And freeing one from polytheism and its people. That he has to have knowledge of that. And that is from the conditions of La ilaha illallah. The meaning of La ilaha illallah from its conditions is knowledge. Knowledge of what affirms and what maintains that kalima, that word, and what negates it. What negates it, meaning what will be the reasons that will totally invalidate that kalima, that word. One has to have knowledge of that, or else he will fall into it. Fall into what will negate it, and even fall to what will what? Invalidate it. Listen to the great Imam, Sheikh, the great Imam from Yemen, Sheikh Abdurrahman ibn Yahya al-Muallimi al-Yamani, who's from the great A'imma. The great A'imma, and he was from these days. From these days about the last, say the 22nd century, about 100 years ago, maybe about 150 years ago, maybe almost 200. The great Imam from Yemen, Sheikh Abdurrahman ibn Yahya al-Muallimi al-Yamani, that he mentions in his book called Al-Ibadah, that he said, وَقَدْ دَلَّ الْكِتَابُ وَالسُّنَّةُ وَالْإِجْمَاعُ وَالْمَعْقُولُ على أنه لا يكفي النطق بها بدون معرفة معناها. He says that from the conditions of La ilaha illallah is knowledge. And he says, in regards to this condition, he says that the book of Allah and the Sunnah message of Allah and the consensus of the ulama, and at the head of the consensus are the Sahaba, who are the heads of the ulama. Not only the heads of the ulama are the companions, but those who are also above them, who are the prophets and messengers. He says that the ijma' wal ma'qul, he says that the book of Allah and the Sunnah message of Allah and the consensus of the ulama, of the scholars, who are the prophets and the messengers, and also the Sahaba, in what is considered to be understood correctly, he says that it does not suffice to utter the word La ilaha illallah, except one has to have proper knowledge of it. As we know, that all these conditions all come in the book of Allah. As we don't have total time to go into every condition and mentioning which is the evidence. I'm sure that everyone is familiar with this, of those who have studied the conditions of La ilaha illallah. Alhamdulillah, I think this community, and from what I've been informed, have been taught the conditions of La ilaha illallah on so many occasions, if I'm not mistaken. From the past, about maybe 15 years ago, maybe before that. That I'm sure, and I haven't been informed, Abdul Mateen and other brothers have taught this class on many occasions. But just to inform, just a little bit of review, we mentioned that. But we're not going to go into too many details in this regard. But that's the first condition of La ilaha illallah, which is al-ilm, which is knowledge. And we know that knowledge is the opposite of ignorance. So if one wants to bring the proper teeth on that key to open the doors of paradise, then he has to have knowledge of La ilaha illallah, of what maintains it, and knowledge of what negates it, or what invalidates it. The second condition, as we know, is al-yaqeen. Is what? Is surety. Having surety of their word. And you notice that surety, everyone, came after knowledge. Notice that surety came after knowledge. Because surety, or the level of surety, cannot be attained except by knowledge. One cannot attain surety upon ignorance. It's impossible. Except that it will be based upon emotions. And we know emotions are like awasif. Al-awatif awasif. Emotions are like storms. They can change and they can drift. You can feel this way one day and feel another way the next. But when something is established upon knowledge and you grasp it, comprehend it firmly, then it will never sway. So knowledge, second condition of La ilaha illallah, which comes after the foundation of knowledge, because knowledge will bring forth yaqeen. It will bring surety. And we know the evidences and proofs for that. We know the evidences which comes in the book of Allah, in the sunnah, the message of Allah, that establishes this what? This condition. I'll just mention one proof. It says, as the message of Allah, it comes in Bukhari, rather it comes in Muslim, excuse me. It says, فَمَنْ لَقِيتَ وَرَاءَ هَذَا الْحَائِطِ يَشْهَدُ أَنْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ مُسْتَيْقِنًا بِهَا قَلْبُهُ فَبَشِّرْهُ بِالْجَنَّةِ. As the message of Allah said, whoever you meet, and he's talking about a certain specific occasion, or something of an incident that happened. He says, whoever you meet behind this wall and that testify that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah, this is the point of evidence here. مُسْتَيْقِنًا بِهَا قَلْبُهُ. Having his heart having surety of that, then give glad tidings of him of paradise. Give glad tidings to him of paradise. So that's one evidence to establish, which comes clearly in authentic proof, that yaqeen, that surety, is from the conditions that validates La ilaha illallah. And we know that the opposing of Pharaoh, the opposite of yaqeen, is shak, is doubt. And we know that doubt or wavering in the belief system is something that's dangerous. As فَالشَّكْ وَالْإِيمَانِ نَقِيضَانِ لَا يَجْتَمِعَانِ فِي قَلْبِ عَبْدٍ أَبَدًا. As doubt and faith, they are two opposites, opposing one another. They can never gather in the heart of the abd, of the servant, ever. So whoever has doubt in that word of La ilaha illallah, then that person has fell into disbelief. Just as the state of the hypocrites, who had doubt in this affair because they did not have yaqeen. For verily this shows the importance of learning these fundamentals. The importance, and we stress its importance, because we know that doubt is disbelief. And doubt is what can allow one to fall into what will negate and invalidate this kalima, this word of La ilaha illallah. As we know, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala says in His book, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِي اللَّهِ إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا بِاللَّهِ. Whatever he used the other ayah. Well, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says in His book, إِنَّمَا يَسْتَأْذِنُكَ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَارْتَابَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ فَهُمْ فِي رَيْبِهِمْ يَتَرَدَّدُونَ. As Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says in Surah At-Tawbah, He said, from when He was talking about the hypocrites, or the occasion when the hypocrites who had doubt, they didn't have surety, they sought permission from the Messenger of Allah not to go out, and they tried to make excuses. They tried to make excuses to pardon themselves. And Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala said about them, He said, verily those who seek your permission are those who do not believe in Allah and His Messenger, and their hearts had doubt, and they were in their state of doubt, wavering. وَكَذَلِكَ الْكُفَّارِ الصُّلَحَاءِ. Likewise, you'll find as from the characteristics of those who disbelieve in the Messenger of Allah. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said about them, when they said to the Messenger of Allah, verily we disbelieve in what you've been sent with. And verily we are in the state of doubt of what you call us to, wavering likewise. And you'll find there's so many ayats in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dispraises doubt, dispraises shak, and how dangerous it is upon the faith of the servant. And the only way that one can protect himself or establish for himself that hisnul hasin, that he establishes for himself that protective barrier or that fortified protective barrier from him falling into this type of disbelief is by knowledge. Then knowledge after that will bring forth what will negate and repel doubt, which is yaqeen. But notice that no one can attain that level of surety except by knowledge. That's why we emphasize on so many occasions its importance. So he said, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, after yaqeen, we know the second after knowledge, the second condition is yaqeen. And we know yaqeen, surety, is of different levels. Likewise, as some people know and certain people do not know, that surety also is of different levels. وَلَيْسَ هَذَا مَحَلُّ بَسْطِهَا. And this is not a time for us to give the details in that. But we know the second condition of La ilaha illallah is yaqeen, surety, and surety is of different levels. Please don't put that here. That's going to distract me. You put food next to me, it's going to distract me. طيب, see, here comes the aroma, right? طيب, so then the second condition is yaqeen, and yaqeen, like we said, is of three levels. You have what they call ilm al-yaqeen, and you have ayn al-yaqeen, and you have haqq al-yaqeen. That we know surety is of three levels. You have knowledge, surety of knowledge. Then you have the surety what is attained with the eyes. And then you have the surety which is the truth. And notice all of them are high levels. They are very, very high. They are high levels, even though, relatively speaking, one is higher than the other, even though all three are very high. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? For verily, the mu'min or the anbiya or the prophets and the messengers attain all three levels, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them of knowledge and what they seen with their eyes of certain affairs that we do not see. From the angels, from the affairs of the unseen, until they reach the level of ayn al-yaqeen. And similar to that is what comes in the story of the great Abu al-Anbiya, the father of the prophets, our father, or from our fathers, who's now considered, rather he is considered Khalil Rahman and Abu al-Anbiya, the father of the prophets and the messengers. As Ibrahim said in the story, وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمِ رَبِّي أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى قَالَ أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ قَالَ بَلَى وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. As it says in the ayah which is in Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah says, when Ibrahim said to his Lord, "O my Lord, show me how you give life to the dead." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, do you not believe? He says, of course. However, in order for my heart to be at ease. A person would say, did Ibrahim have doubt? No, he didn't. Ibrahim already reached the level of yaqeen. He reached the level of the level of what? Ilm al-yaqeen. He had knowledge of surety. He had knowledge of surety, ilm al-yaqeen. He had knowledge of surety. He already achieved the level of yaqeen, but he wanted to go to a higher level of yaqeen. He wanted to go from one level of yaqeen to another level of yaqeen. He wanted to go from knowledge of yaqeen to the second level of yaqeen, which is ayn al-yaqeen, which is to have surety with the eyes. But Ibrahim was already attained a level of what? Of surety, which is the highest of levels. But he wanted to go from a higher level to another higher level. But at any rate, I don't want to go too much details into this. But at any rate, that is the second level, and from the conditions of La ilaha illallah. The third conditions of La ilaha illallah, which is the teeth, which is put on the key to open up the gardens of paradise. The third teeth, or the tooth, what is put on that key, which is al-ikhlas, which is sincerity as we know, which is the opposite of polytheism, or musharaka, of what is considered idolatry and polytheism. Sincerity, which is the opposite of it, which is what? Which is polytheism in all of its types. You'll find that the great Imam, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah rahimahullah, put in his book entitled Istiqama. He said, Al-Ikhlas munafin lil-shirk wa tahqiq al-ikhlas bi khulu al-qalbi mimma siwa Allah wa sukunuhu ila Allah. You'll find that he mentioned his book called Al-Istiqama rahimahullah, that he said that the meaning of ikhlas, which is the third condition of La ilaha illallah, he said it is to actualize sincerity with freeing and voiding the heart of what is other than Allah. Voiding the heart of other than Allah. And one feeling ease and serenity and security to Allah. So notice, he says, وَمِنْ أَدِلَّتِهِ, and he brings his evidence, which comes in Surah Al-Bayyinah, ayah number 5. They have not been commanded except to worship Allah sincerely for Him, and making the religion also sincerely for Him, hunafa, and also being people of hunafa, meaning that they are inclined towards Allah alone. Being inclined towards monotheism, leaning away totally from polytheism. Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah also says in another profound statement, which is in his book Majmu' al-Fatawa, or you can say Majmu' al-Fatawi, you can say either one. Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, he says, إخلاص الدين لله وهو الدين الذي لا يقبل الله سواه وهو الذي بعث الله به الأولين والآخرين من الرسل وأنزل به جميع الكتب واتفق عليه أئمة أهل الإيمان وهذا هو خلاصة الدعوة النبوية وهو قطب القرآن الذي تدور عليه رحاه. The Shaykh al-Islam, he says that purifying, making the religion sincerely for Allah is the religion, the Deen. And we said the meaning of Deen before in the previous classes. Of the meaning of Deen means a lot of meanings. As Deen, as we know, means character, etiquette, mannerism, how you treat people, as we know. That's from the meanings of Deen. Also, Deen means what you will be repaid, as we talked about in last class, meaning what you will obtain as a repayment, meaning what you do of acts in which you will be rewarded or where you will face of consequences. He says, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this he goes on to say, Allah wa ta'ala will not accept other than that. And that is the reason of why he sent the first and the last of the prophets and messengers and revealed all the books in which all the ai''mmah, meaning the ai''mmah of faith, of proper faith, said that is to sum up the call or the prophetic calls of all the prophets and messengers. As their message was never different. Rather, they were all synonymous and the same. And he says, and that is the Qutbul Quran. That is which the Quran is founded upon, in which everything revolves around, which is the true reality of La ilaha illallah. So those are from the conditions of La ilaha illallah, which is knowledge, which is surety, and also sincerity, and also sidq. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الصِّدْقُ, truthfulness or veracity, which is the opposite of kadhib, which is the opposite of lying, which is also from the conditions of La ilaha illallah. As we know, sidq, the most greatest of truthfulness, of sidq, is La ilaha illallah. And the greatest lie, fabrication, is that there's a partner that is either associated along with Allah or worship besides Allah. That is the greatest lie. There is no greater fabrication than that. So sidq al-munafi lil-kadhib. So sidq, or truthfulness, which is the opposite of it, lying. It is also from the teeth which needs to be put on that key that will open the door of La ilaha illallah. So having that sidq, or being sadiq, as some of Ahl Ilm will bring some of their statements quickly, we know that the meaning of sidq in the Arabic language is that, of course we know it's the opposite of lying. He says, سُمِّيَ بِذَلِكَ لِقُوَّتِهِ فِي نَفْسِهِ. I want everyone to listen to the reason why sidq is called sidq. Truthfulness is called truthfulness in the Arabic language. It's called that because سُمِّيَ بِذَلِكَ لِقُوَّتِهِ فِي نَفْسِهِ. He said because truthfulness indicates the strength of the person, how strong they are. It says, it shows what? سُمِّيَ بِذَلِكَ لِقُوَّتِهِ فِي نَفْسِهِ. How strong that individual is in himself. Meaning he's able to face up to what he has done and say it. And it shows the bravery and the might and the strength of the individual and how strong he is or she is. And as we know, lying, kadhib, is the sister, or if you want to say, the relative of cowardice. And they both are what? Similar. They're twins. It's kadhib, also likewise, is the characteristic of jubn, of cowardness. And it shows how weak you are. So that's the reason why kadhib is, or sidq is called sidq. As you'll find, in which the great Imam, and it's in the dictionary, and alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed this ummah to the point we even have a Salafi Dictionary in Arabic by the great Imam Ibn Faris. And it's called Mu'jam Maqalis al-Lugha, or Muhadhib al-Lugha, I think it's Tahdhib al-Lugha, by Ibn Faris, which is a Salafi dictionary. But alhamdulillah, Allah has favored us where we have everything we need. We don't need anything else. We don't need the likes of Carnegie or any of these other people from the non-Muslims that it's sad to say that a lot of people are starting to refer to, and which we do not need. Non-Muslims, in order to teach us how to properly worship our Lord and how to properly govern or administrate the affairs of society. Rather, they're in need of Islam. But at any rate, this is the definition that he mentioned in Mu'jam Maqayis al-Lugha. He said that sidq is called sidq, he says, which shows the strength of an individual in himself. And it opposes kadhib, lying. So he goes on to say, وَمُطَابَقَةَ الْخَبْرِ الْوَاقِعِ. And as we know, as far as in the meaning of what people know, meaning especially in Kitab and Sunnah, the meaning of sidq is what agrees with the state of affairs or what's truly in reality. Meaning what you say, that it agrees to truly what happened. Meaning it agrees with the reality of how it took place. That's the meaning of sidq also. Meaning as far as in Kitab and Sunnah. Meaning that you're saying of what truly is the reality of what happened and what took place and what is taking place. وذلك بأن يواطئ القلب اللسان فيطابق الظاهر والباطن. Also likewise, the meaning of sidq is that your heart and your tongue, it agrees of what you profess openly and what you believe secretly in your heart. That they agree with one another. He says, عند الإقرار بكلمة التوحيد, especially when one is affirming the word of monotheism, La ilaha illallah. The great Imam again, who's from the Talamid, the students of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, his name was Ibn Abdul Hadi. He said, فَإِنَّ مِن شُرُوطِ كَلِمَةِ الْإِخْلَاصِ بِاللِّسَانِ التَّصْدِيقُ بِذَلِكَ وَتَحْقِيقُهُ بِالْقَلْبِ وَإِلَّا فَهُوَ مُنَافِقٌ. Well, we already mentioned that. From the conditions of the sincerity, or the word of sincerity, La ilaha illallah, confession with the tongue, of course, or acknowledgement with the tongue, and firmly believing that, and establishing that, or actualizing it with the heart. And if that's not the case, then he's a hypocrite. One proof of that, the proof of that is in the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, and I'm just going to suffice with this proof, and I think it's enough. أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا صِدْق صَدَقُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, Alif Lam Mim, do the people truly think that they will be left to say, I believe, and they will not be put to test? And they will not be put to test or be tried or be given tribulations. Meaning they will be tested with sometimes when they're happy, sometimes when they're sad, sometimes when they're tired, sometimes when they're energetic, sometimes when they're happy, sometimes when they're sad, sometimes when they're in a state of good health, sometimes when they're sick, pain, to the end of it. Physically, mentally, all of that. All that's from the trials and tribulations Allah already mentioned in his book. He said was going to happen if you say the word La ilaha illallah. And if you don't say La ilaha illallah, it still will happen to you. You still will face some type of pain, sadness, happiness. Sometimes you're sick. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're happy. Sometimes you're sad. That's life. There's no one that's exempt from those stages. Is anyone in this room or anyone that's probably listening online can say, I've never had those things in my life? And if they was to negate any of those affairs, I'm sure that everyone would say, then you either don't live in this existence or you live in another dimension, which is absolutely impossible. For verily, everyone, this is their case. And your trials and tribulation could be increased once you say La ilaha illallah. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to say, وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Verily, we have put to trial and test those before them. Why? In order that Allah has knowledge, and we're going to explain the meaning of this. فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا. In order for Allah to have knowledge, and we'll explain the meaning of this context, those who have truthfulness, those who are what? Truthful, and those who are liars. If you go back to the tafsir of the ayah, as the great Imam, Shaykh Abdurrahman al-Sa'di, and also, everyone, also in Jami' al-Bayan, and also what Imam al-Baghawi and other than them mentioned. said that the meaning of the ayah is that Allah will manifest the truthfulness of those who are truthful. He will make it known. Of those who are truthful in their claim of what they say verbally with their tongues, He will establish that. And He will establish firmly the liars of those who are lying. And He will make it clear. So that's the meaning of the ayah, that Allah will have knowledge of those who will Allah will have knowledge of those who are truthful and have knowledge of those who are lying, meaning Allah will manifest it. And Allah Ta'ala will manifest it. طيب, we can stop here. If the sisters want me to stop, we'll stop. But if they want me to continue, I'll continue. The sisters, do they want to continue or they want to stop? I can't hear. What'd she say? طيب. So notice it says in the ayah, or in the conditions of La ilaha illallah, these are from its conditions. To have knowledge, to have surety, to have sincerity, and the fourth teeth, or the fourth is what I keep saying teeth, the fourth tooth to be added to the key to open paradise is what we just mentioned, which is CITIC, truthfulness. Truthfulness. And I'm sure that everyone that hears this sees clearly the beauty of the religion of Islam. And all this is connected with the foundation of La ilaha illallah. Because all these characteristics are praiseworthy characteristics. Knowledge, surety, sincerity, truthfulness. Does that sound like something barbaric? Does that sound like something evil? That you say a word and you saying it with knowledge, saying it with surety, saying it with sincerity, saying it with sincerity, also saying it with what? With truthfulness. طيب, the next condition is what? Also, qabul, acceptance. And we know the meaning of acceptance, or the opposite of acceptance is a taraddud, or a rafd, or al-iba', is rejection. Acceptance, the opposite of it, as we know, is rejection. This is also from the conditions of La ilaha illallah, as we know. There was an extra benefit I wanted to mention, and that's just something pertaining to, and I'll mention it quickly about CITIC. It just came to my mind, and we'll also just mention it quickly. Going back to CITIC, just quickly. He says, there's a statement in which Al-Hafiz Ibn Rajab, rahimahullah, that he mentions his book called Jami' al-Ulum wal-Hikam. He says, فاشترط في إنجاء من قال بهذه ومن قال هذه الكلمة من النار أن يقولها صدقا من قلبه فلا ينفعه مجرد تلفظ بدون مواطأة القلب. Oh, that's not the statement, that's Al-Hafiz al-Hakami. But anyway, I'm going to go back to Al-Hafiz ibn Rajab that he mentions. It says وذلك لأن الصدق في هذه الكلمة مطهر للقلب من كل ما سوى الله فمن صدق في قوله لا إله إلا الله لم يحب سواه ولم يرجو إلا إياه ولم يخشى أحدا إلا الله ولم يتوكل إلا عليه ولم يبقى له بقية من أثر نفسه وهواه ومن أثر نفسه وهواه ومتى بقي في القلب أثر لسوى الله فمن قلة الصدق في قولها. الله أكبر. The Al-Hafidh ibn Rajab that he mentions, it says, truthfulness in this word of La ilaha illallah purifies, was purification for the heart of everything that is other than Allah. Who has truthfulness in this statement of La ilaha illallah will not love other than Allah, meaning the love of worship, of course. And he will not hope for mercy or for reward except from Allah. And he will not fear anyone except Allah. and he will not put his trust except upon Allah or in Allah, and it will not remain anything of any remainder of him, of what he prefers, and even what he desires for himself, except, like we said, for Allah to be with ta'ala, and to be in accordance to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded, and what he has prohibited, of course. And whoever has anything remaining in their heart of some type of remnants, which is for other than Allah, and that's due to his qillatu sidq fi qawliha. That's because of him having little truthfulness in his what? In his statement. So the fifth condition, as we discussed, is al-qabul. The fifth condition of la ilaha illallah, which is what? Acceptance, which is the opposite of rejection. So we know that the kalimat al-tawheed does not benefit anyone if he utters it, except that he has to have knowledge of it, ilm. He has to be sincere in it, firmly believing it, and also he has to accept it and observe working in accordance with it to the point where he dies, until he dies. It says, قال the great Imam, again, the great Sheikh Abdurrahman ibn Yahya al-Muallimi al-Yamani, the great Imam, that he says, وَمِنْهَا أَن يَكُونَ النُّطْقُ بِهَا عَلَى سَبِيلِ الِالْتِزَامِ التزام أن يعمل طول عمره بمضمون كلمة التوحيد ولا يخالفها. He says, in the meaning of qabul, acceptance, is that you utter it out of now iltizam, meaning that you observe it, observing, working in accordance to it all of your life, which is the madmoon of what the kalimat, the word of monotheism, la ilaha illallah, contains, and that he does not oppose it. He also goes on to say, وَهَذَا مُتَضَمِّنْ الْإِلْتِزَامِ لِتَصْرِيحِهِ بِأَنَّ إِرْسَالَ الرُّسُلِ إِلَى قَوْمِهِمْ كَانَ لِدَعْوَتِهِمْ إِلَى عِبَادَةِ اللَّهِ وَحْدَهُ وَتَرْكِ عِبَادَةِ غَيْرِهِ وَإِجَابَةِ الرُّسُلِ مَعْنَاهَا قَبُولُ مَا أُرْسِلُوا بِهِ ولما جعلت الشهادة إعلانا بقبول ما أرسل به الرسل كانت متضمنة التزام الشاهد أن لا يعبد إلا الله. He goes on to say in another statement, the great Imam, Sheikh Abdurrahman ibn Yahya al-Muallimi al-Yamani, he says, وَهَذَا مُتَضَمِنَ الْإِلْتِزَامِ. This kalima, this word, and one utters a la ilaha illallah, contains one to observe, when he vocalizes it, that he also has the acceptance of why the prophets and the messengers were sent to their people. Prophets and the messengers were sent to them, calling them to the worship of Allah alone, all of them, and leaving off worship other than Allah, and answering the calls of the messengers and prophets. And the meaning of it is accepting what they were sent with. And when the word of the shahada, the testimony of la ilaha illallah, is vocalizing and broadcasting the acceptance of what they were sent with, meaning the prophets and messengers, that contains iltizam al-shahid. That contains as of one observing, which will be a witness or testification, of course, that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah. So that is from the meaning of la ilaha illallah is acceptance and not rejection, meaning that you don't believe in what they were sent with, but rather fully accepting it without any rejection and without any hesitation. قال الحليمي لو قال الوثني لا إله إلا الله وكان يزعم أن الصنم يقربه إلى الله لم يكن مؤمنا حتى يتبرأ من عبادة الصنم. He says of some from Ahl Ilm, his name was Al-Halimi. This was also mentioned in the statement of Fath al-Bari by Al-Hafid ibn Hajar in his book, which is the explanation of Bukhari. He mentioned a statement of a scholar, Al-Hafid ibn Hajar, of a scholar that passed. His name was Al-Halimi. He said, لو قال الوثني لا إله إلا الله وكان يزعم أن الصنم يقربه إلى الله لم يكن مؤمنا حتى يتبرأ من عبادة الصنم. He says, if a person who was a person that worships an idol, a person that worships an idol, said La ilaha illallah, for example, and he claims that that statue, what he's worshiping, brings him close to Allah, he's not a believer until he frees himself from the worship of that statue. And similar to that, of what the Muslims do in these days, of worshiping their so-called mashayikh al-turuq. And so they're so-called worshiping their so-called mashayikh al-turuq al-sufiyah, of what they call them so-called ska or mashayikh, but in actuality they have taken them as deities likewise. So all these are the conditions of La ilaha illallah, and also, which is inqiyad, surrendering oneself. And we'll discuss that inshallah. And also the last, which is mahabba, which is love. Which is love. All those will formulate for the person the proper teeth, which is put on the key to open the doors of paradise. Also, likewise, everyone will stop. We'll just mention a couple of things, which is important that I think some people are ignorant of. What removes? A person can build up the proper key. You can build up the proper and put the proper. You can build up the key and put the proper teeth on the key. You also can remove those teeth from those keys. So do not think you've built it and then it cannot be removed. For example, of affairs. But if you have those teeth and you firmly work by them and establish them, then inshallah you will not fall into what will remove them once they have been firmly established. From those things that will negate it, negate those teeth and render the whole key void, is what they call nawaqid al-i'tiqadiyya. What will those affairs that nullifies one's belief system? It's getting colder here. He says, istihlal al-muharramat, istihlal amr al-ma'lum min ad-deen bid-darura. From those are things that will negate the meaning of La ilaha illallah, and I'll mention them just quickly and brief. وهو يعتقد الإنسان في قلبه شيئا يناقض لا إله إلا الله ويبطل مدلولها. He says that if a person has a firm belief in his heart, something that opposes and negates La ilaha illallah and nullifies or invalidates its meaning or what it indicates. And from the example of that, and I'll bring one example and then we'll stop. As a matter of fact, I'll bring two and we'll stop. For example, istihlal al-muharramat. استحلال أمر معلوم من الدين بالضرورة. استحلال المحرمات ناقض من نواقض لا إله إلا الله ويدل لذلك قصة قدام بن مضعون ومن معه حينما شرب الخمر. The first thing of what will nullify one's testimony of La ilaha illallah and what opposes it and what invalidates what it indicates is to make halal, to make something lawful what Allah made unlawful. To make lawful what Allah made unlawful. Istihlal al-muharramat. Meaning that you make something lawful, an affair which is known that one that says he's Muslim is supposed to have knowledge of. He's supposed to have knowledge of. He's supposed to have knowledge of by a darura, meaning it's almost like life and death, meaning there's something that is extremely necessary that you have knowledge of that affair. Extremely necessary. For example, like it's incumbent upon the one to know the meaning of tawheed and know what opposes it by polytheism. That is detrimental and the welfare and the welfare of your soul relies on it. A person would say, why did I say? I didn't say life, I said your soul. I didn't say your life, I said your soul. What do I mean by that? I'll read quickly what Ibn al-Qayyim that he mentions. Ibn al-Qayyim talks about how the knowledge of the prophets and messengers is more important than your food and your drink. Having knowledge of these affairs of which we're discussing is more important than your food and your drink, meaning what preserves your body and your life. Listen to this. He says in a very, very important point. He said, عدم استغناء الإنسان عن دين الله طرفة عين, brings a tremendous benefit. In his book called Sawa'iq al-Mursala and also in Zad al-Mu'ad, he goes on to say, he says, there is no way that anyone is independent and free of the religion of Allah the blink of an eye. He said, فَالنَّاسِ بِحَاجَةِ إِلَى مَعْرِفَةِ مَا جَاءَ بِهِ الرُّسُلُ بِعَدَدِ أَنفَاسِهِمْ وحركاتهم ومن أحسن من صور هذه الحاجة إلى الرسل ابن القيم قال الضرورة إليهم يعني إلى الرسل أعظم من ضرورة البدن إلى روحه الله أكبر والعين إلى نورها والروح إلى حياتها فأي ضرورة وحاجة فرضت فضرورة العبد وحاجته إلى الرسل فوقها بكثير وما ظنك بمن إذا غاب عنك هديه وما جاء به طرفة عين فسد قلبك وصار كالحوت إذا فارق الماء ووضع في المقلاة فحال العبد عند مفارقة قلبه لما جاء به الرسل كهذه الحال بل أعظم. Listen to what he says. This is a tremendous statement. He says the darura of the people to the prophets and the messengers and what they brought, he says is more greater, magnificent than the dire need of the body than its own spirit. Than the darura of the severe, because we know if the spirit leaves the body, it's dead. He says the necessity and the need of the people and what the prophets came with is more magnificent and greater than the dire need of the body needing its spirit, and that the eyes needing light to see, and that the ruh ila hayatiha, and the spirit also needing its life. فَأَيُّ صُورَةٍ وَحَاجَةٍ فُرِضَتْ. He says, is there any dire of what we considered a dire need or extreme need of what necessitates of life and death, what we're going to talk about, of the body, of what we can imagine, or what we can bring forth, except that the darurat al-abd, or that the dire need or the extreme need of the slave or the servant to what the messengers brought is above that by numerous of degrees. بِكَثِير. Now listen to what he goes on to say. وَمَا ظَنُّكَ بِمَنْ إِذَا غَابَ عَنْكَ هَدْيُهُ وَمَا جَاءَ بِهِ طَرْفَةَ عَيْنٍ فَسَدَ قَلْبُكَ وصار كالحوت إذا فارق الماء ووضع في المقلاة. He said, what about the person, what will you think of the one who, and look to who you see. Listen to what the great Imam goes on to say. What about you? What is your opinion of the one who you see that the guidance of the Prophet has been now removed from them? Look to how they conduct. Look to how they look. He says to look now to the one who's been taken away the guidance of the prophets and the messengers, the proper guidance. And what they came with, if it's removed from them a blink of an eye, the heart becomes corrupt. And the person who's now been void of the guidance of the prophets, he said he becomes like the fish or the hoot or the whale that he's now been removed from the water and he's been thrown upon the land. فَحَالَ الْعَبْدِ, for verily the حال العبد عند مفارقة قلبه, for verily the state or the abd or the servant, when it has now been void of the guidance of the prophets and the messengers, that it's now, or it's departed from that, he says it will be similar to what we just mentioned. This will be like his state, and even greater. The example we said about the fish. So listen what he goes on to say. I'm going to skip down a little bit because it's a little bit lengthy, but this is the profound statement I want everyone to be arouse some attention to. Listen what he goes on to say. وَأَمَّا الطَّعَامُ وَالشَّرَابُ وَالتَّنَفُّسُ فَغَايَةُ مَا يُقَدَّرُ فِي عَدَمِهَا هُوَ مَوْتُ الْبَدَنِ وَأَمَّا مَا يُقَدَّرُ عِنْدَ عَدَمِ الشَّرِيعَةِ فَفَسَادُ الرُّوحِ وَالْقَلْبِ جُمْلَةً وَهَلَاكُ الْأَبَدِ وشتان بين هذا وهلاك البدن بالموت وذلك أن موت القلب نتيجته شقاء الأبد وأما موت البدن فهو انتقال من دار إلى دار ولهذا قال الله تبارك وتعالى والفتنة أشد من القتل والفتنة أكبر من القتل فمن مات على الإيمان سعد سعادة لا يشقى بعدها أبدا ومن مات على الكفر شقي شقاوة لا سعادة معها. Then he goes on to say, the great Imam, as for food and drink and you breathing, he said, for the utmost of what we could say, of what has been predetermined, if it doesn't exist, is the death of the body. As for we to predetermine or to determine of one not having the guidance of the prophets and the messengers, meaning no having any legislation or proper methodology or proper belief, he said that brings about something extremely worse on a higher level, which is the corruption of the soul and the heart altogether. He says, "Wa halakul abad," and also the everlasting, permanent destruction. He says, and there's a difference between these two. He says, وَهَلَاكُ الْبَدَنِ بِالْمَوْتِ. The destruction of the body is due to death. However, the death of the heart will bring the result of permanent, everlasting destruction and evil and punishment. He says, وَأَمَّا مَوْتُ الْبَدَنِ. As for death of the body, all death of the body does is switches you from one place to another. That's all it does. Death of the body just switches you and moves you from one place to another, meaning to the world of this world that we're in now to the hereafter. That's all it does. It just moves you. That's the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, fitna is more severe than death or killing. Fitna is more than killing, meaning the death of the heart. The death of the heart by disbelief, by polytheism, by innovation, by all these affairs is worse than death of the body. Because moving of the death of the body, like we said, is just transporting you from one place to another. Rather, the death of the heart causes your ultimate permanent destruction forever. Which one is worse? So he says, فَمَنْ مَاتَ عَلَى الْإِيمَانِ. Whoever dies upon faith, then he will attain a happiness in which he will never be. He'll never be tortured, or he'll never be wicked after it ever. And whoever dies upon disbelief, he will be wicked to the point or level where he will never ever be happy. So that's to show that what everyone, the importance of knowledge of the prophets and the messengers is more important than the one's food and drink, and even to the point of how much he breathes. And this is the point that we stress into people to know and show to them the importance of knowledge. But that's the last thing. We can stop here, inshallah. So keep a point on what we just mentioned about La ilaha illallah, and also mentioning what will come as a result of one falling into what will now negate the meaning of La ilaha illallah or invalidate it. And the points of what we just started by saying, making lawful what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made unlawful and believing that. And denying something of an affair that a person is supposed to know, which is part of the religion, extremely, or having knowledge of the religion or the affair, or denying it, in which a person is supposed to what? Know by extreme necessities. Meaning, for example, I'm going to give one example to stop, such as knowing that fornication is haram. If you do not have knowledge of that, you're supposed to hasten towards learning it. Or, for example, that intoxication is haram. So those are things that are what they call, one that's supposed to attain and have knowledge of it by darura, by extreme necessity, to have knowledge of those affairs. And other things that we just mentioned. We'll stop, inshallah. We'll stop here. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.